This presentation is about Israel, both the political parties and the political systems, where everything is political. This presentation has two main parts. The first is about the political system, including an overview, a discussion of the Knesset, the executive, and the press. The second part is about the political parties represented in the Knesset, their ideologies, and their platforms. We will look at four parties only: Likud, Labour, Yesh Atid, and Kulanu. The political system in Israel is a parliamentary democracy, and it uses a proportional representation system using party lists. The president of Israel is a largely ceremonial role, and the Arab-Israeli peace diplomacy and treaties is one of the biggest issues. The Constitution of Israel is made up of 11 basic laws. The Knesset is the national legislature of Israel. It has 120 members and one chamber. Each member serves a 4-year term and is elected through a closed-list proportional representation. There is a secret ballot. There are no separate electoral districts. There is universal suffrage. The minimum threshold for parties being represented for seats in the Knesset is 2%, and the government can change without another election campaign. Elections are, however, often held early, and the average duration of government is 25 months. The head of the government in Israel is the Prime Minister, who is a leader of a coalition of parties in the Knesset. The cabinet is itself approved by the Knesset and meets weekly on Sunday morning, which is the beginning of the work week in Israel. Small parties in the system have power and importance and usually join a coalition in return for certain pet bills being passed. Although the press is considered the fifth estate in many countries, it is particularly vigorous in Israel and is considered almost the fourth branch of government. The highest per capita daily sales of newspapers in the world can be found in Israel. There are over a dozen independent newspapers published in Hebrew, English, Russian, and Arabic, several weeklies, many hourly news radio broadcasts, 2 TV channels, but there is also a military censor on news stories. Having examined the political system of Israel, we can now turn to an examination of its political parties. After the 2015 election, this was the standing of the major parties in the Knesset, although there are a large number of parties with fewer seats. The Likud had 30, the Labour Party had 19, Yesh Atid had 11, and Kulanu had 10. More about these parties in a moment. As you might expect with a vigorous democracy such as Israel, the political ideologies of the parties are decidedly mixed. Liberalism, both national and economic, conservatism, secularism, economic egalitarianism are all features of the party ideologies, as you can see. The Likud is, like Labour, one of the older parties. It is both right-wing and nationalist, but it has supported a two-state solution to the Arab-Israeli conflict since 2009. The significant issue for their base is the expansion of Jewish settlements in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. And the election campaign relied on the image of a strong prime minister in 2015. Among the promises in that campaign, changes to the political system, equality in national military service, economic reforms, and a continued focus on security. The Labour Party is now split into several Zionist parties, and the most important in the Knesset is the Zionist Union Party. Its leader is Avi Gabbai. Its politics are those of a social democratic Zionist party, with promises such as wide-scale social and economic reforms, the end to the privatization of public infrastructure and social services, an increase to the minimum wage, and, of course, it refuses categorically to join the Likud coalition. Yesh Atid is a newer party. It is Hebrew for "there is a future," and it represents the secular center of Israeli politics. Its leader is Yair Lapid, and among its promises are an opposition to religious parties and government, an end to the exemption from military service and welfare benefits for ultra-Orthodox Jews, that the Prime Minister should hold substantive peace talks, it supports a two-state solution, and an almost complete withdrawal from the West Bank, although it does oppose a division of Jerusalem. The Kulanu Party has for its leader Moshe Kahlon. It was founded in November 2014, just a few months before the election campaign, and its base is for the lower middle class Sephardim and Mizrahim in Tel Aviv. Its positions include egalitarian economics, issues affecting the middle class, and strong working class appeals. As you have seen, in Israel, the political parties are numerous and the political system is vigorous. Everything is political.